Part 1, the detention. My family and I spent the first 4.5 months of the war under constant threat of tanks and missiles that rained shrapnel down on us day and night and destroyed entire apartment blocks. One harsh night in February, neighborhoods and homes around us were destroyed, and one of our apartments was burned while we were still in it. We turned a corner under the stairs into an area to hide in for the night, and we headed out from our house in the morning to find shelter after the situation calmed down a bit towards one of the nearby schools. Even though we are told schools are safe and protected shelters by the occupation army, it wasn't long before we were surrounded. Soldiers screamed at us to stay in place. All night we could hear the sound of shells hitting the houses and the sounds of tanks and bulldozers, one of which destroyed the local pump station that supplied the school with water. We felt afraid, fear because they were besieging us, and fear because of the lack of water. We were not there long before a small camera plane entered and photographed parts of the school. After that, a tank stormed the school gate and demolished it, and the soldiers ordered us to evacuate yet again to another so-called safe zone. Initially, I thought we were going west to Mawasi, where the fighting had been less intense and where the refugee camps are in better condition, but the Israeli army had other plans. After they demolished the front gate to the school, we were ordered to line up in single file. We were then marched out into the street and divided into 5 groups, where we were ordered to produce our ID cards. My little brother, hoping we were still going to Mawasi, immediately offered his ID, after which he was told to strip. He was handcuffed, blindfolded, and dragged inside a nearby building to be interrogated. I was shocked to see him in this state. Then the same thing happened to us when it was our turn and we were handcuffed and blindfolded, me and my father, with a group of about 50 people. Part 2, interrogation. In the building, we heard the sounds of screaming, torture, beatings, and the breaking of bones. Pardon me. Of both elderly people and young people in the prime of their lives. Of people who had no fault in what was happening except that they were Palestinians. One of the elderly people was beaten, and when he asked the soldier to hurry up and treat him before he had a stroke and to bring him some water, the soldier poured poisoned water on him. The sounds of his last gasps are still in my ears to this day, and I don't know if he is still alive or not. He was just an old man. What did he have to do with all that was happening? These people are far from being human. They are even more brutal than monsters themselves. My main concern at that moment, was my brother and my father. How would I know what happened to them? I couldn't see them because of the blindfold on my eyes. I heard a murmur in pain. It was my brother's voice. "Is that you?" I asked. He replied, "Yes, they beat me severely, but I will be fine." I had no choice but to comfort him with my words and tell him that we would get out soon, as we had nothing to do with what was happening. I hoped that we would get out without a permanent disability or without only half a foot or an arm. Fortunately for me, they stopped calling the rest of the people up to be interrogated. Eventually, we were marched out of the building even further south. We were taken to what I now recognize as one of the high-rises of Khan Yunis, which is in the south of Gaza. We were marched up the stairs over debris and broken glass to the roof, where we would spend hours blindfolded, shivering in the cold, exhausted, deprived of food and water. The blindfold was so tight, I felt as if I would suffocate at any minute. The plastic zip ties cut into my wrists and felt like they almost took my hands off. They lowered us from the building and then dragged me away. I was walking on the sand dunes, stumbling, falling, being dragged and insulted. The voices of the rest of the prisoners disappeared behind me. I thought that they would start killing us. The soldier took me to one of the dunes and asked me to sit down. I said, "This is my end. I will be killed now." But fortunately, that did not happen. A few minutes later, a military truck arrived and they pushed us on top of each other in it. Then they drove us for 2 hours to a place we do not know. All this was happening while I remembered the scene of my scared mother and my sisters walking toward the west before they took us. I told her then, "Half an hour and we'll catch up with you. It's just a quick investigation." I did not know it would take this long. We arrived at a place where they ordered us to change our clothes, and I think now it was just in the open street. Then a bus came, and we got on it, and all the while we were still handcuffed, blindfolded, and barefoot. We sat down, and they asked us to lower our heads down. I was writhing in pain because of the position I was in. I had been suffering from neck pain for several years, and it got worse here. We were taken to a place that looked like a military site and dragged off one by one to a small cabin. They removed the blindfold for only a minute when I was interrogated by a female soldier, then was taken with several other men into a series of cages. I have learned now through leaked photos that I was staying in what looked like animal cages. This was the torture prison. Part 3, prison. Our hands and feet were shackled with iron chains, and a piece of plastic with a number on it was hung in each hand. They treat you like a number and not like a human being. We were asked to sleep quickly. Yes, we slept what was left of the night, handcuffed, blindfolded, exhausted, hungry, and thirsty. We slept on the ground without a cover in the bitter cold. We were not even able to relieve ourselves in the bathroom until the next day. To give you a small description of the prison and our situation, we were woken up every day at dawn, perhaps at about 4 or 5 o'clock. After about half an hour, we were asked to stand up so that our names could be called. We could not sit down until all the detainees were called, who could number about 120. Detainees in one cage. They would leave us standing for no reason for long hours. In the prison, there are only 1 or 2 bathrooms, plastic bathrooms, and you need to relieve yourself by asking for permission, and you have to wait according to the number given to you. For example, you might be number 90. I remember that from early morning until before noon, you were forbidden from entering the bathrooms. You couldn't stay in the bathroom for more than a minute. In the best case, you could stay 5 minutes, but more than that, and you would be punished. I will tell you that myself and a large number of detainees suffered from constipation because of this law, as we, as normal people, were unable to relieve ourselves. I remember that I was only able to relieve myself once during the 2 weeks I spent in detention. And I remember that there was one of the young men who spent 30 days without relieving himself because of constipation and because of an injury to his stomach that he acquired from torture. As for the doctors, many of us asked to be provided with a laxative, and they always postponed it intentionally. As for showering, it was only once a week, and it only lasted 4 minutes. The food provided to us was not enough to satisfy hunger, and it was very bad. We were given bread with a little canned tuna, and another meal was a small box of cheese with bread. These were the only meals during the entire period of detention, and some detainees now spend about 200 days or more on the same meals. They were often late in bringing food on purpose, and sometimes would prevent us from getting this food, starving us. I remember that some detainees were allergic to these meals, and they would not be given anything to eat but bread. Finally, part 4, torture. These criminals did not differentiate between the young and the elderly. I will mention to you some of the scenes that I remember. There were a large number of elderly people with us from 60 to 75, and even older than that. Many of them had chronic diseases, and some of them had been injured during captivity. One of them was sitting next to me, and he was suffering from nerve relaxation and an injury to his foot and hand. He could not stand when they asked us to do so. He was trying to tell them about his illness, but they were shouting at him. They shouted at him that they shouted at him, "You will stand even if you are paralyzed." He was holding on to me and the person next to him so that he would not fall. He fainted several times, and they had no choice but to wake him up and force him to stand up again. Among the detainees were a number of people with fractures who had platinum inserted into their hands or feet, and these were also forced to stand with us for long hours. The doctor rarely appeared, just for formalities and nothing more, and he did not help anyone at all. Painkillers were forbidden, and many types of medications. The most they did was change the bandages of the wounded sometimes. In general, the health condition of the prisoners was dire, between injuries that were not attended to or chronic diseases, and even skin diseases that spread among them. Thank you all.